Greetings, fellow humans. Welcome to the discussion table. My name is Sean on the Milwaukee, Wisconsin side of the table. On the Columbus, Ohio side, we've got Alex Dollenmayer. Alex, who are we and what are we talking about today?
We are an indie pop band called Oh Geeez, Not Again, and we're here to review Scaled and Icy by 21 Pilots.
That's right. Half because we were feeling a little embarrassed that we didn't like Clancy last week, but also because I really think this record deserves more of a chance than it got when it first came out in 2021.
Yes, I agree. We are the defenders, and we will stop the slander.
The Scaled and Icy slander, yes.
Yeah.
So, as we talked about in our review of Clancy, we have been following 21 Pilots for a very long time. We have been very inspired by this band. So in 2021, when Scaled and Icy came out, we were paying very close attention to the rollout of this record, to the live stream that they did, because obviously it was 2021 and we still weren't back to live music yet. What do you remember about the rollout of this album and your first thoughts on it?
I remember being so surprised because it kind of came out of nowhere. I remember they updated their dema.org site with the announcement. I think it was May 17th or I don't know. I know it was sometime in May was the album release date.
Yep.
And they announced the live stream show with it, I believe. And then when Shy Away came out, I was instantly on board. I know this may sound like an odd thing to be immediately attached to, but even the colors I was so excited by because it's just this bright cotton candy-esque bubblegum type colors, and I think that perfectly encapsulates the sound and tone of the record. And I was just excited. I know people wanted a Trench sequel, but I was glad we were very clearly getting something else.
Yeah, definitely. I also, the first time I heard Shy Away, I was very impressed by it. We'll talk more about that when we get to the song itself. But I think this is another record similar to Clancy where the marketing around it really seemed to do it no favors.
Right.
Because in the run up to this, there were so many little hidden things that seemed to suggest that this record was supposed to be quote unquote propaganda, or that Tyler and Josh were being manipulated by some higher power into performing this record. A bit that they have continued up until this year, where they brought it back for the Clancy video. And I feel like that just set expectations in a weird way for this record. And again, I don't think it did it any favors, because I think coming at it from this perspective of, oh, this is something different, this really isn't us, giving themselves an out in that way made it feel like it wasn't a genuine record. And I think, personally, obviously I don't know the band, but I think this record comes from a very genuine place. And I think that when you start to unpack it beyond just the pivot back to something more mainstream, which was very intentional, I think there really is a lot going on in this record. And I really want to get more into that, because this is a record that has been, I think, really influential to me personally, especially when it came out in 2021 and the music that I was writing at that point in time. But also as we've continued, I think this record just has had a lot of resonance for me, and it's been something that I've come back to a lot. And I really do want to get into that. But kind of going back to it, was there anything else about your first impressions of the album itself that you'd want to touch on?
Well, yeah, to jump off the propaganda thing, I think that's such a challenging thing to pull off, because you don't know what part of it is supposed to be this propaganda theme and when that stops. Because I can understand from a thematic perspective, oh, they're dressing us up in different ways and they're using these bright colors to distract from what's really going on from Trench or whatever. I think that's an interesting concept, but I think people took it too far, where they're like, this means that they didn't want to make this music. Because that's not, it doesn't rub me that way at all. Like, oh,
no,
Dima's controlling the sound of this. Like, that's way too, they wanted to make these songs. They wanted to do a pop record. And it's not like it's completely absent either of more typical 21 Pilots lyricism or stuff that people would expect, but I think people instantly wrote it off when they heard the first few singles. But For me, I was on the whole other end of it. I was just so excited. Like it was a good time for me too for this to come out. I forget that we didn't know each other at this time
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah.
because we only knew each other because of Saturday later on and all that sort of stuff. But it's hard for me to not look back with those rose tinted glasses, especially now that we have Clancy. I'm like, oh, we had it so good in 2021, which is I think a little unfair, but
Yeah.
it was a very exciting time for me to be a fan.
And I'll say this, I think that even though the sound is fun and lighthearted, this is not a happy album at all.
Right.
I would say the major theme of this record is paranoia. Like everyone is out to get them on this record. And that's something that we'll come back to a lot on this. But in terms of the music that I was making at this point, really inspired by a lot of different TV shows, that was a big theme of those shows too, of being in this world where you're the outcast and you've got to find the people and the things that you're going to rely on to get you through. And in terms of what I was writing at that point, again, this record was hugely influential to that. So let's get into that. So we start off with track 1, which is Good Day. You have said that this is your favorite 21 Pilots opening track. Can you talk more about that?
I'm going to take it a step further and say it's my favorite 21 Pilots song ever.
But you said that about The Craving when we were talking about Clancy.
I said it was one of my favorite 21 Pilots songs ever. Don't get it twisted. This is actually my number one.
Okay.
No, this is actually my favorite 21 Pilots song. As I've been re-listening to it, just prepping for this, I feel very confident in saying that. I think that the reason I'm so drawn to it is just based on the music that I grew up with. Any sort of piano-based power pop is what my dad would show me when I was like 10 years old. So especially Ben Folds 5, I know Tyler even cited that as an influence for this song. That's a huge thing for me because a lot of Ben Folds albums just hold a dear place in my heart, and I can hear that influence for sure. And even more classic influences like Elton John and the Beatles, I hear that stuff here. So that's the main reasoning, honestly. And I think to juxtapose this lighthearted sound with a song that really isn't that happy, I think that's something that people get. I think that's something that people get twisted with. Like you said, with this album in general, they assume that because it's this more uplifting thing that it's automatically this super happy record. But the lyrics, what is it? Not Today, where, the music sounds so happy, but the lyrics are so down.
The lyrics are so down. I mean, that's been their theme for a long time. They've always made happy sounding, sad music.
But yeah, to have this lighthearted piano and these horns coming in and this fun drum part, and then to have the song kick off with I Can Feel the Saturation Leaving Me, and basically being about if the worst things in the world happen to him, if he lost his wife, if he lost his child, just sort of pretending, put on that happy face and just keep going. That's something that I can personally relate to, just a sense of kind of blind optimism. Sometimes I can't tell if I am just blissfully unaware or if it really is happiness. Oh wow, that's getting deep. But
that's getting deep. Wow, this only track 1, Alex. Save some for later.
This is a therapy session. But no, I think it's something that I can personally relate to. I think it's something that we kind of ended up writing about in our last song, Summer Weather.
Absolutely, yeah.
I just love the song. I love that whole idea, but more importantly than that, I just love the way the song is constructed. Like I said, I love those horns. It's actually one of my favorite 21 Pilots drum parts, not in the sense that it's super complex or anything, but it could be a lot more straightforward, but there's these extra snare hits that make it pretty fun. And the biggest thing is that it feels super dynamic, which was one of my biggest issues with Clancy, which I'm not going to harp on during this. I'm not going to compare the two the whole time, but I will get that out of the way, that that's one of the reasons why this sort of production sits better with me than the stuff on that album. But I want to get your thoughts because, like I said, it's nostalgic for me. It's a style of music that I don't hear enough of, but I want to hear what you're thinking because
I don't necessarily have a strong affiliation with that style. I think what I hear in this record is like a sitcom opening, which is very, very different from all of their other opening tracks. Like if there's one thing I can say about Good Day is that no other 21 Pilots album opens this way. They always start off with the minor key, the heavy synth and the bass. And here we've got this big piano pop song, as you mentioned. And I think that's the perfect way to start off this record, not only because of the themes of trying to kind of smile through the pain, which is a big part of this record, but also just because it starts off kind of zooming in on, like, I can almost picture you like zooming in on a little house in the suburbs kind of thing, which is where this record was made. You know, that Tyler says it was made during the pandemic, obviously, in his house, in this confinement. And that is also a big part of this record, of having this kind of feeling stuck in this space. I just think the song is so well crafted. The structuring and the construction of this song is just perfect. Like down to the contrast between the two phrases, where you start with this big, I can feel my saturation, and then leaving me slowly. Like just between those two phrases, there's such great contrast that it's just immediately catchy. And then it goes the other way on the pre-chorus with the I'm all right. Would you say you depend on the weather? Like that's just so great. Just the song craft here is so perfect. And like you said about the dynamics, you start with this piano part, then you go to the ukulele part, then you get the big strings and horns that come in. The production on this song, and I think I'll go so far as to say on this whole album, is my favorite production of any 21 Pilots album. It's just so full, it's so bright, but it also is so cohesive too. And it just works together from track to track. I think they've never sounded better than they do on this album.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the mixes too are super clean.
Yes.
Like there's, some people could say that it's overproduced or that it's too clean. But for me, that's never been something that really bothers me. And I think it's funny that for Trench, people praise that production because it's really heavy and a little bit experimental. And I get that. Like I love Trench, but I think to write this off as if it's just this like generic thing, this slap together thing, and these are just some pop songs and whatever, I don't know. That's just wild to me, because when you hear these songs, they're so beautifully produced and, like you said, crafted, that it surprises me how much that goes over some fans' heads.
It takes a lot of work to sound this simple. It really does. Mm-hmm. Like to put something together that just fits together in this way and yet still feels so breezy and just simple to sing along to. It takes a lot of work. Mm-hmm. Like I can tell you that from experience. It is not easy to make a great pop song. And I think that especially in the music that we make, hearing something like this, we can tell immediately, just like, oh wow, like listen to how all that fits together. It's just so well crafted. It's a great song. It's a great opening to the record. And that takes us then to the second track, the second single off the record, which was Choker. I don't bother anyone, nervous when I stand. When this one came out, did you have any thoughts on this one in isolation before the record came out?
Yeah, I didn't initially love it as a single. And maybe that's because I loved Shy Away so much that anything in comparison would seem like a disappointment, which we'll get to that song after, obviously. But this song, out of maybe any 21 Pilots song, has grown on me so much over time. I love that the chorus is super anthemic. I also think that this is the most reminiscent. If people are coming to this album wanting something that's like Vessel, or I'd even go as far as to say like regional at best, I think this is the closest you'll get to that, not just in Tyler's delivery, but in the lyrics, in the construction of the song even. I love the drum part. Again,
yes,
the drums have this super dead sound, but it's a really complex part, and it's not something you would expect from a song like this. If anything, I would expect the electronic production, and that starts in the first half to continue, but once it transitions and blends with the real drums from Josh, I just think that fits really well. It's another one of those songs that I think is super dynamic. I love when in the bridge it just cuts out and it's Tyler and the piano, and then it goes into that breakdown towards the end. I think his rapping is super charming. I wouldn't say that it's like a great performance, and I can understand why the people that didn't like Vessel or don't like the 21 Pilots shtick to sort of roll their eyes at this kind of delivery. But I think it's fitting for this song, and I think it's a nice little throwback to those older sounds while still feeling very much at home on this record.
I've always loved the way this song sounds. I love how it builds in the beginning from that break beat that kicks it off to all those synths that then come in. There's those super syncopated synth lines that all fit together with each other, and how that then blends in with the tambourine and the piano and those little hums in there. The layering on this song is just incredible to me from a production standpoint. This also is the first song that we start to really kind of bring in some of those guitars too, and the guitar was the big instrument that was introduced on this record. And as a guitarist, I really love that. I love all the little parts on here that just kind of sneak in there. I also think these are some of my favorite 21 Pilots lyrics on a song. The line in the second verse of "It seems like all I'm worth is what I'm able to withstand" is a fantastic line. And even as you get into the rap too, like, yeah, it is, you said charming. And I think that is a great way to do it, because it does feel a little bit like Dr. Seussy, which has always been, I think, kind of a criticism of Tyler's rapping, but it works well here. It feels like a throwback. And I think the lyrics are really good on this one too. Again, that idea of, this one, he's not even smiling through the pain. This one is more kind of getting deeper into that idea of, am I always going to feel this way? Am I ever going to get ahead? And it's a great, I think it's a great song, and it is a weird choice as a single. I think it was done to kind of be that throwback to an earlier era to see if that would kind of get the fans on board. It seems like it was a little hit or miss in terms of that, but I think that's why it came out. But certainly pales as a single in comparison to the next song on the record, which is "Shy Away." Don't you shy away. Manifest this. You said immediately that you really liked this one when it came out. Is there something in particular that you really love about this song?
I just think it's a perfect single.
Yes.
Because the chorus is just so infectious. I vividly remember this song coming out, and I didn't even understand why I was so obsessed with it. But I remember checking my Spotify stats, and within a couple of days I had replayed it 100 times. Like, not an exaggeration, I had actually replayed it 100 times. And it was such a breath of fresh air. And I'm glad that Tyler has said in interviews about this album that because it was the pandemic, they didn't want to come out with a record that was just dark and depressing. That seems like the obvious choice, especially even with the trench concept and feeling like you're trapped and literally being trapped. It's like that would be the most expected thing to do, and I'm so glad that it wasn't, and this song just made that so clear. I think my only gripe with this song to this day, and I know you know what it is the drum part staying the same the whole song. See, I'm consistent, okay? So all of the people that I complained on Clancy about that, it's also my complaint here, but it's still just so dynamic somehow, even with that. I love when it gets into the "Don't Circle the Track," that whole section, especially seeing that live, really elevates that whole thing. I think the screams at the end are perfect. I think there's a chance that could have gone overboard, where I know when they do it live, it is a lot bigger and much more in the forefront, and people are like, oh, I wish the original song did that. I really do not. I think it would have been an odd fit, but I think it really works sitting in the background. I like the story behind it with Tyler and his brother, but yeah, I'm never gonna get sick of this song, even with the drum part. I can make my peace with it because it's just too good.
To go back to the story about how Tyler says he was inspired to do this because of his brother also wanting to pursue music, it's also one of the stranger blurrings of like what this record is. Like, is it propaganda or is it genuine? Like, which is it, guys? You know, you share these personal stories about where these songs came from, but you market it as like you're being puppeted by some higher power. So which is it? That being said, this song is not just one of my favorite songs off the record. It is one of my favorite 21 Pilots songs. One of my favorite songs so far this decade, if I'm being honest with you as well. I have always loved how this one sounds, but I really truly love the sentiment and the lyrics here. It is a very inspirational song of just, you know, don't give in to your hesitation. Just go for it. That manifest a ceiling when you shy away is such a great line, and delivered with that melody. That manifest a ceiling when you shy away. Melody on this song is incredible. I just love it so much. I could go on and on about all the little melodic choices in this song, and that bridge that you talked about don't circle the track, break the cycle in half, where he starts to get more grit in his voice, more power to it. On a production songwriting level, this song is just a marvel to me of how tight it is. Like it's less than 3 minutes, and yet it really feels like you go on a whole journey with this song. It starts with the kind of the bleep bloop synth, for a lack of a better explanation, but and then to build to this big, you know, power pop with the guitars and the bass going and driving it home, and like you said, those screams at the end, I think that gives it the perfect edge for that final chorus. There is not a bit of wasted space in this song. Everything has a purpose to it. Everything has a place. And as a producer, that's what I'm always looking for in a song, is a song where it feels like everything is just firing on all cylinders and it all has its place in the mix. I will say, I think my favorite part of this song is the little gimmick of the "don't you shh" after the first chorus. I just love that. And then how it kind of slides back in the production there. Just, again, a perfectly orchestrated song where everything is slotting in so perfectly with everything else. I remember hearing it for the first time and thinking the first song that came to mind for me was "Give Yourself a Try" by the 1975. It's got that same very fast beat with the guitars in it, and that seemed to me like the sound they were going for. They were going for a more alternative radio sound, and it works perfectly. I love that sound. I like that guitar pop sound. And so when I first heard this again, I was immediately sold on it. I know that it wasn't what the fans were expecting, and I certainly went back to, before we did this, to see like what the response was, and it seems like people are going like, "Oh, this is good." You know, hoping there's more of the Trench sound on the next record, and no, that really wasn't what happened. But no, I was on board with this song immediately, and it was one of my most played songs of 2021, as well as I know it was for you too.
I like that you mentioned "Give Yourself a Try" because I hate that song.
Really?
I can see the comparison very clearly, but yeah, I hate that song. But this is not about that.
Yeah, well, it's not about the 1975. One other thing I remember about this song is I saw them live on the first show back from the pandemic, which just happened to be at Summerfest here in Milwaukee. And Shy Away was the second to last song that they played. And I was there with Jack, who is the guitarist in our band. And at the end of Shy Away, right before they went into the final chorus, they did an interpolation of "I'm Not Okay" by My Chemical Romance.
Oh, yeah.
And Jack lost his mind there. He was going crazy during that part. And that is one of my favorite concert moments that I've ever been to. And the reason that they were able to do that so well is because they had the band with them at that show, which I think definitely takes us to the next song, "The Outside." Up and down, they're nodding, heads are moving up. This is a song that I think is done very well live, first and foremost. I want to skip to the live part of this because this is a big part of this record and this era that I think is important, was that they toured with a band for this album. And I know the band is very divisive amongst 21 Pilots fans, but I loved the band. I thought they were a great addition to the show, to the sound. And on the outside, this is the song that they kind of came in on in the show. And the intro that they had with each of the members getting their little solo in the spotlight. First time I saw that when we were at Summerfest, that was just such a great moment to me. I thought that was so cool how that was set up. And when I think about the outside, that's the thing I always think about with this song is how great it is live, that intro into the song. I love how that goes off live. But to the song on the record, any thoughts about the song on the record to start off with?
Yeah, so I mean, first in regards to the live show, one of my biggest regrets is not seeing them during this time. I had watched so many videos, and obviously I had the live stream thing, which was fun because I did end up seeing that at a theater in Columbus. But because I was away at college, it just wasn't very feasible, and I really wish I could have seen them live with the band because I'm on the same page as you. I think it's so much fun that they had them in there. But in regards to this song, I remember hearing this album for the first time. My brother had listened to The Leak. He was a Leak listener.
Did you hear it? The Leak?
And I refused. I wanted to wait until midnight. And he had already listened to it like a billion times just the couple days before. And he had already fully decided that like this was his favorite 21 Pilots album. Nowadays, I don't know if he would even say that, but at the time that's what he was thinking. And so that made me feel good about it because I know that we have such similar tastes. It was funny because we were home for college, and so his bedroom is just right across from mine, but we were in our individual rooms, and as I was listening to this album for the first time, he was literally just texting me like, oh, get ready for this part, or like, you know, whatever else. And when it got to the outside, so I already felt great up until this point, obviously, because like Good Day, I was floored by, I Choker was starting to grow on me, and then I loved Shy Away. And then for the outside, he's like, just check out this song, like this one's awesome. And I love how groovy it is, like the bass is going crazy on this one. I think it's ridiculously catchy. The heads are moving up and down is super fun. I think the rap in the second verse is probably my favorite rap on the album, not because of the lyrics or anything like that, but just because of the production and Tyler's cocky energy during this. It just pairs so well. These synths come in and it's like he's saying he's the Megalodon or whatever, and it's like another one that I would consider charming. Do I think it's like Levitate? Do I think it's on par with something like that? No, but I just think it's so much fun, and that's something I could return to a lot with this album. Funnily enough, my similar sort of complaint with Shy Away, the drums don't do much in this song, but it's just a situation where it doesn't need to, because there is so much going on in this song production-wise. There's so many different layers that come in and out, and it just sort of scales up as the song goes on. You've got these funky guitars, and then when that all cuts out and you hear the crowd and audience and like people ambience, I love that sort of stuff. I'm okay with drums being simple when it serves the song well. I'm not saying that you have to have these like super complex parts and have these huge dynamics between every chorus and verse. Like, we have plenty of songs where the drums are stagnant. I think Summer Weather is that way. There's plenty of others, but because there's so much happening around that and the song isn't asking for anything more, I think it's fine. And yeah, I just love this one. I think it was a wise choice to not release this as a single ahead of the album, but then have a music video afterwards, because I think it would put a weird taste in people's mouth even more so if this was a single right off the bat. I just find it funny. I'm trying not to harp too much on the common complaints, but it's funny to me how opposed 21 Pilots fans are to having fun. This song is just fun, and it's like, why is that so bad? I understand that they're a band that's known for people resonating deeply with their lyrics, but I also don't think that means it's a bad thing to just have a groovy song that's, like I said, got this cockiness to it and this confidence.
The groove on this one is really the selling point for me. That is one of their best bass lines. And it's an actual, like, bass line with movement to it. I will freely admit I have ripped this bass line off wholesale on one of our songs. You can go find it for yourself. This one also, all the little parts that come in, there's that wiry synth that kicks it off. The bass comes in, the drums come in, and then after the first chorus you get those guitars that come in, the little melodies that slide in there. I love how the production shifts for the rap part. It just has such a groove and a drive to it. Again, it feels like everything is working together so well, and it does lend itself very well to the live setting too, where you can have all those parts played on stage. It sounds so good on the record, on stage as well. There is one comparison I want to make, and I think that it's interesting that we both like this song so much and dislike Lavish so much, because they are kind of similar in a way. They are very similar. This is, again, about Tyler tried to assert that, like, he's the pro here. He's the one who's got it. All these kids trying to take his vibes. Like, what do they know? Kind of thing. And I think the reason that this song works for me and that one doesn't is that this feels very much like a much more populist song, where Tyler isn't the guy living in the lavish mansion here. You know, he's not joining the club. Like, he's not paying the cover charge. He's out here doing his thing in the street with the people. And, like, that's what this is, that's what this is about. And, you know, little do you know that, like, all these folks out here on the outside, they're gonna be the ones who rule the world here. And I love that sentiment, that kind of, no, we're the outcasts here. We're the outsiders. But little do you know, we're better than all of you. Because even on a personal level, like, when I'm feeling myself, I feel that way too. I'm like, oh, you think you think you're so cool up there on your big stage? Well, little do you know, I'm better than you. I like that kind of cocky energy so much more than I like the I'm rich and opulent cocky energy.
Yeah, I think there's an underdog spirit to it that makes the confidence relatable. And Lavish just has this disconnect for me personally. I think your biggest problem with something like Lavish was, I think, lyrically. My biggest thing with Lavish is just I didn't like the way it was produced, and this is such a juxtaposition to that.
It is. Lavish does not have a funky bass line.
No, it does not. And maybe if it had one, I would feel better about it.
I think so. I truly think so.
But yeah, anything else on this song?
No, I think we got to go on to the one.
This is the one.
This is the one.
Do you want to start here, or you want me to?
You know, I think we need to say first and foremost that the reason that I know you is because I saw you playing a drum cover of Saturday on Twitter. And I was like, wait a minute, this guy's got it. He's getting all the parts. He's got control. It's tight. This guy's a great drummer. We need a drummer. I should reach out to him. And now here we are, 3 years later, talking about Scaled and Icy. So we have a very personal connection to this song. But I will say, the first time I heard this song, I really did not know what to do with it, because it is a very blatant pop song designed for radio play, designed for commercials. Tyler has said as much about it, and yet I really like this song.
Wow, I'm surprised you ever felt that way. For me, this was instantly something I gravitated towards. Like, I'm just thinking of over the years before this, how much I loved just good quality pop music. And I love that it was so unabashedly that way. It wasn't trying to trick you into thinking it was anything else. It is a chorus that's designed to be on the radio. I think this is one that Tyler said it came to him in a dream, and a band was playing this at a festival. That makes perfect sense to me. You know, I said Good Day is my favorite 21 Pilots song ever. I feel pretty strongly that this is my second favorite. Maybe that's the personal connection to it, but again, even when I heard it right off the bat, this may sound odd to people, but it was so inspiring to me because of that unabashedly pop energy, but also drum-wise, I am absolutely in love with the stops in
Yes.
the like third chorus or something. That is something that I will never get over. It's something that I want to put in like every single song that we make. As soon as I heard that, I remember thinking, is that a mistake? I think that's what most people thought when they heard it for the first time.
I did go back to the discussion thread about this song, and someone's like, did anyone hear the weird mistake at like 2.5 minutes where it cuts out?
Yeah.
Like, how did that get through? I'm like, no, my friend. That was intentional, and it's perfect.
It is, and like, it is the most fun song to play on drums for that reason. It's pretty simple, but in the best way. I also think the comparison I can draw most easily, and this is sort of a nostalgic thing for me too, is actually early Maroon 5 stuff, their second album, It Won't Be Soon Before Long, which I really like that album. I don't think it gets enough credit. I think that, yes, it is this pop song, but I love the incorporation of the guitar. It's one of those ones where it's not on this album, there's not like crazy guitar parts. Sure, there's a solo in Never Take It, but I wouldn't consider that solo to be like mind-blowing or anything. Obviously, it's not meant to be. But I think that the guitar, much like Level of Concern, I think Level of Concern was a good prep for this album, and I think Saturday is most similar to that song. I don't really know what to say about it because I literally think it's perfect. There is not a single thing I would change about this. Even with these songs I've loved so far, maybe there's like a tiny little thing I would want to be different besides Good Day. But this, no, I love everything about it. I think the other thing too, I was saying that the chorus was super catchy, but the other reason I love it is that every single part of the song is super catchy. Like sometimes the pre-chorus will just get stuck in my head, or even the verses, and that's pretty rare. It's a thing you said earlier, people write this off as just some pop thing, but I don't think they realize how hard it is to write something this infectious. So yeah, again, have a personal connection. I love everything about it. I don't care. Tyler, you should have written Saturday. It's the best decision you've ever made. Do not walk back on that. I don't care what the haters say. I am a ride or die for Saturday, and if I see them live in October and they don't play this song, I'm gonna have a big problem.
I think you better get ready to have a big problem.
I can't stomach it. I literally refuse to believe it. So I'm gonna pretend that everybody loves this song. So that's the world I choose to exist in.
Yeah, there's two things I want to go off on with that. You mentioned the guitars on this record and how they're not showy, they're not complex. But I think that is perfect, actually, because a great guitar part is not a complicated guitar part. A great guitar part serves the song that it's in. And I think that throughout this record, the guitars always serve the song perfectly. And especially on this one where you've got that kind of that funky part in there. It's just the perfect guitar part for this song. And there is a lot of layers to this one, as has there been for all of these songs, a lot of textures to it. I was going to bring up the stops. I was going to say this may sound bad, but my favorite part of this song is silence. Might get loud out front. That is, whenever anyone does that, that is a cheat code for getting in my head and making it an instant favorite song to me. Walk the Moon did it on One Foot. I love that song. AJR did it on Burn the House Down. That's one of my favorite songs from them. I will even go so far as to say that Imagine Dragons song that came out earlier this year, Eyes Closed, they do it on that one. And shamefully, I was like, ooh, that's pretty catchy. So even Imagine Dragons, the band that everyone is always griping about, even when they do it, I like it. So 21 Pilots doing it on Saturday, instant favorite moments of the song are those stops of the final chorus. This is another one, though, lyrically, where it's not just a cutesy song. It is very much that kind of smiling through the pain kind of song, and trying to find something that'll keep you going in this moment. It is a very pandemic song about sitting in quarantine and having nothing to do and being bored and trying to find those ways to keep yourself occupied and entertained. But even outside of that setting, like it just works when you're in that pit where you're just like, oh my gosh, nothing's changing, everything's blah. She said that you should change your clothes, you should switch something up, you should get out there. And what better song to soundtrack that than this one?
I would like to formally ask that we have a stop in a future song. I think the closest we've gotten is Run Wild.
Yeah, we need to officially formalize that. That is true.
Which I do still have the audio from 2021 of me telling you
that we needed to do that. Yes.
I was like, we need like a Saturday thing. Like we need it.
See, guys, this is how influential this record has been for us. Not only did we meet through this record, the production choices on it have influenced so many of our own production choices, and that says something about the longevity and the impact of this record.
I'm just so glad I'm alive to witness this song. That is how strongly I feel about it. I think this album would be very incomplete without it.
I think it's the centerpiece of the record, for that matter. I think that it is the song that was supposed to, again, be the big single here, and the fact that it wasn't is really a shame, because it's a great song, great single. But from there, we go on to the kind of moving into the back half of the record. Now we've got Never Take It as the next song. This one is interesting to me. I will have some criticisms of this song, but in the spirit, I would like you to start off with this one. What are your thoughts on Never Take It?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's my favorite or one that I would return to that regularly outside of listening to the whole album, but I really do love the general feel of it. It almost has this like 90s indie rock kind of vibe. It's another one that I would use the word charming for again. I like that Tyler just blatantly says in the song, he taught himself to play guitar, and that he's like not very good, but he's gonna like show off his skills, and like the guitar solo is like not that good, but
it's the perfect guitar solo for the song.
It's fun. Yeah, and it's exactly what I would have expected. It would be weird if he like started shredding or something. While I'm okay with, the other drum parts feeling sometimes a little one note, like on the outside or something like that, I do wish this one, I feel like it's begging for a little bit more energy. It sounds like the part just got looped from the verses, and I'm not crazy about that. I feel like it should, especially, I'm going to get super specific here, but I think in the last chorus it should change to the ride cymbal instead of the hi-hat. I hear a different part here, or at least changing parts a little bit. I think that would help the song. But besides that, I feel pretty good about just the song itself. Lyrically, I'm a little split on it. It feels a little scattershot to me and a little like half-baked, but I think it's fun. I think especially great in the like live stream version. But not necessarily one of my favorites. I think the lyrics are holding it back along with those drums, but I'm definitely not mad at it. It's not a song I dislike by any means.
I will say that I think there's a reason that 21 Pilots don't talk about current issues a lot. Mm-hmm. Not just because they usually just don't want to go there. They're off building their own little world in their own little space here. But this one being one of the sole exceptions to that, lyrically the song is not very good. It's just not. It's trying to have this, again, the reason that it works at all for me is that it comes at it from this very populist side of like, we will band together and we won't take any of this crap. But it's like, okay, Tyler, you're talking about how like they're trying to weaponize us, they're lying through fake teeth. Well, who are they? Who are they? Who are we? If you're trying to have a cause here, you need to kind of tell us what your cause is. And especially some other questionable choices here of like saying, why cure disease of confusion when you're the treatment facility? Like, it was 2021. That was not a good look. That was really not a good look.
I didn't even think of that. I literally never thought of that.
And also the line that everyone criticizes from this one, the you better educate yourself, but never too much. Well, who decides that? What is too much? So lyrically, yeah, this one is misguided at best and a little bit of a side look at worst of what are you talking about, Tyler? I don't know that I want to be associated with it, whatever it is. But the song sounds very good. I've always liked how this one sounds. I love the guitar solo. I love the little disco claps and the little backing vocals. The bass is really driving. The synth choice to kick it off is really great. Sonically, I do like the song. It's very catchy. It is just enough that I can overlook the more questionable nature of the lyrics.
I remember when the album came out, people were kind of coping with it, and they're like, no, this is about Dima. They're trying to weaponize you and I. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, if that were the case, there would be other songs on here that are more blatantly tied to this lore and whatever else, and this is just very clearly disconnected from that.
It gets back to the idea of the paranoia of this record, of Tyler being very suspicious of anyone who's telling him how to do things, or of, they may be coming to take something from you. And for better and worse, I do think that's genuine to what he was going through, because here was a guy who had been very successful and gotten a lot, and now here he is with his family, and he's got success, he's got a following. And I think that's one of the sad things about getting stuff like that, is that when you get there, you worry at all times that someone's going to take it away from you. And I think that being kind of stuck in your house in the pandemic and having nothing to think about but stuff like that does start to weigh on you. And so even though I think the song needs a little bit more specificity in order to be like a real anthem, I do think that it's genuine to what Tyler was going through and something that he really wanted to say, and that he did feel like there wasn't a lot of people that he could trust. And this song speaks to an experience like that.
I also think that this song, and this takes me into Mulberry Street, I think it makes perfect sense why they did the live stream, because it has this musical theater kind of energy to it, even just with the backing vocals.
Yes.
And then Mulberry Street, I feel very much the same way. But I do want to get your thoughts first on Mulberry Street, because I'm going to have a lot to say about this one.
Get out of our way. We're moving sideways.
This one, I feel like this is one that, even as divisive as this record is, the fans do seem to like this one a lot. This one has been a staple of the live show. It's great live, especially with the little sing-along that they do in the middle of it, or the long intro that they do with the "Anybody out there still with me now?" and like the band kicking in on that. As a song, it's actually not one of my personal favorites on the record. There are some great parts of it. I think that this starts to get into some of the really interesting vocal layering that the back half of the record has, and that's something that I'm going to touch on in pretty much the rest of the songs. There's a really interesting balance between like doing pitch shifted stuff, but doing like real harmonies and real doubling. So as a production standpoint, that's my favorite part about this song. It's got a nice melody to it. It's got a nice arrangement to it. It's not one that sticks with me as much as some of the other ones do, but I can still acknowledge that it is a fun song when I'm listening to the record. I'm not going to skip it. It's a fun song to sing along to.
Interesting. I feel very strongly about this song in
Okay.
a good way, actually. And again, when I was listening to this album for the first time, and my brother was texting me before the song even started, he's like, best song ever. And so I feel like I already went in thinking like, oh, I'm gonna love this one. And I hate to keep saying this, but I really do feel this way. This is probably my third favorite 21 Pilots song, literally ever.
Wow.
Okay, and there's a reason why. Literally the only reason why. It's not even fair, I don't think, to other 21 Pilots songs. I acknowledge that. But I am an absolute sucker for piano-based power pop. Like, again, this calls back to, like, Elton John, Ben Folds, all those sorts of things. And I don't know what it is about that style that I am so drawn to, but there was just no way I wouldn't love this song. Even if lyrically it was the worst thing of all time, I wouldn't care. Like, I would still probably say it's my third favorite. Like, I do not care. I feel that strongly about how it's produced and how it's arranged. Whenever I hear this song, I picture the little dance from the live stream, and I think that's really fun. I love the little breakdown that happens. And again, this feels like it's meant for a stage, like that theatrical sort of thing. And there's so many things I love about it. I mean, I like so good falsetto in the background.
Oh yeah, that's a good
I'm
hook.
obsessed
That's
with
a
that.
good hook.
Again, it's unfair that I would put this song on such a high pedestal, but it's just a personal thing for me. It's funny, to go off of the Clancy thing, my dad, when we were in the record store, he's like, wow, this is like a blend of all of their styles so far. Like, I feel like you should love that. And I was like, well, no, I kind of miss like the power pop stuff.
Yeah.
But I was probably the only person there out of like one of the few out of the hundreds of people there that felt that way. But no, this is one I very regularly return to on its own. I like its placement on the record too. I just think it sounds like a track 7.
In that it's kind of like an anchor point of the record, something that should be right in the middle.
I would feel weird if this was like one of the first songs. It feels like it should be like sort of the start of the back half, but it's still got a lot of energy, and I don't think it ever had like single potential necessarily, but that's why I think it just makes sense, especially after Never Take It. Those really work as a combo for me. And actually, even going into Formidable, I feel like that's a very strong 3-track run just based on the styles that it's drawing from.
I do want to say, I think the one thing holding it back for me on this one is, again, I wish the lyrics were a little bit more specific. Like, Tyler has said what Mulberry Street is, but like, I'm not sure what that has to do with the context of the song. Like, why are you going to Mulberry Street? What's all this about synthetic highs and prescribing? Like, I've seen people criticize this as like an anti-medication song. And it's like, I don't think that's what this is. But like, if you didn't want me to think that, I feel like there should have been more of a specificity about what this is all supposed to mean. It's got a good vibe to it. I do love that piano pop style, certainly as you mentioned. Lyrically, though, I'm just like, okay, what is this really about? I don't know.
No, I mean, I feel the same way. Like, lyrically, I really don't think it makes any sense to me. Like, I really don't get what... I've heard that, too, like, that it's this anti-meds thing. But then it's the total flip side of my Clancy argument, where I was like, where you loved lyrics on, let's say, Snapback. And I was like, oh, well, I don't care about the lyrics because I don't like the song. This is the other way around, where it's like, I love the song too much to care about the lyrics. So it's like,
That's fair.
I can literally just turn my brain off and be like, I don't know what he's yapping about, but whatever it is, it sounds good. So, it's kind of rare that a song is good enough for me to be able to just sort of look past that entirely.
Yeah.
But I have heavy bias towards it. I will acknowledge that. I need to see this one live too. I feel like this has a better chance.
Yes,
of being played
you will
live.
almost certainly see this one live.
Okay, that feels good. I can make my peace with that. If I don't get Saturday, I'll take this.
You are formidable to me, 'cause you seem to know it.
Now, you did mention Formidable in there, and you think saying that was a good song stretch. So is that another one that ranks as a favorite of yours on this record?
I wouldn't necessarily say that, but I feel like this is the most blatant Beatles-esque song.
Okay.
In terms of the production, in terms of even how the drums sound, it's very 60s. The bridge is one of my favorite bridges on the whole album. You know, when it gets into the fast forward 13 years now, I just love the chord progression during all that. It's funny that my whole praise for The Craving was, it doesn't need anything else. It's just Tyler and the ukulele. I do still feel that way. But then this one, I'm so glad that it's not just that. I think that it would feel very out of place on this record to have that super scaled back and isolated thing.
We'll get into that. Yeah.
But I think that this needed to continue the sort of throwback sound that Mulberry Street kind of brought in. This even feeling more so 60s-esque. And I know he originally just wrote it for Jenna on the ukulele, but I think it makes a lot of sense that it feels the way that it does. It also was a huge inspiration for me personally. The sound of the drums. I feel like I've told you this before, that our song Real Thing was very much inspired by the drum sound on this.
Oh, one time I was looking for a hideaway place, someone I could turn when I'm through.
So yeah, I have to acknowledge that, but I wouldn't say I ever return to this song independently, but I love it on this album, and I think it's perfectly produced for what it was going for.
Production on this one is definitely a standout to me. I think, it is a very great all-purpose love song lyrically, and I got to give it credit for that. It could be about your significant other. It could be about anybody. It's just this idea of having this person that is really mind-blowing to you in your life, that they kind of terrify you by how you think, like, am I good enough for this person? Like, are they gonna get tired of me at some point? And I certainly feel that sentiment. So lyrically I do like it, but I think the production and the little choices that are made in here really drive it home for me. My actual favorite part of the song is at the very end when the guitar plays the melody from the chorus. It sounds so good. The tone that he chose for that, it just sits so perfectly in the song. It's a great way to end it. The vocal layering on this too, really, if you take the time to dig into all the little backing vocals, all the little harmonies, the doubles, the pitch shifted stuff, it's a real work of art how all those vocals sit in there so well and how they add to the atmosphere. I also love when it cuts back and the strings come in, the synth strings, they sound very old and kind of vinyl effect on it on that last chorus. There's such a warmth to this song. And that's the thing that really drives it home for me. All those little production elements. That's the thing I love most about this record, is that there are just so many little production choices that were made. Be it these little melodies that come through, be it the way the vocals are layered, be it the way the bass line works or the way the guitars creep in there. There's always some little ear candy to find on this record. And this one has a ton of great ear candy moments for me.
Yeah, especially those vocal wise. Again, that bridge, I think it's one of my favorites just because of the harmonies that come in there. It's so stacked.
It is. There's so many vocals. Yeah, but they all sit so well. And that is, again, a testament to how produced and crafted this record is. Shall we go on to the other one?
Oh, you consider this the other one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In terms of the backlash? Oh.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Oh.
Before you bounce back home to the house, man, we'll sing one more.
Bounce Man, track 9.
I will acknowledge this. If I had to pick a least favorite on this album, up until this point, I really haven't said that much that's like negative. So I guess this would probably be my least favorite, but I'm definitely not against the song. Like, I feel weird saying that because I'm sure everybody that's heard, the hardcore fans that have heard this album, they're like, oh yeah, Bounce Man sucks. Like, that's my least favorite. And that's not what I mean when I say it's my least favorite, because I think this is such a fun song. Like, this is the least amount of notes I've written for any song on this album because I just wrote fun and I could sing along to it. Like, I really didn't write much else to it. There actually is something in the outro that goes into No Chances that I want to touch on. But I think the hook is fun. It almost has like this childlike quality to it. One of the comparisons I've seen online, people in a negative way are like, this is like if AJR was featured on this album, they would write this kind of hook, which I can actually kind of hear that, but not in a bad way for me.
No.
I think it's fun. I don't really have too much that I can like specifically pinpoint as like, oh, I really like this decision. Like drum wise, I think pretty much all of this is programmed, which is fine with me. But yeah, maybe you have more specifics of, because I know you like this song, about why you like or dislike it maybe.
I love this song. It puts the biggest smile on my face. It's so good. And the thing I love about it is not just that it is this silly kind of song about Tyler imagining himself helping some guy escape from justice or something silly like that. Again, I it's like, what are you talking about, Tyler? You do not have soldiers on your pedigree. Like, you don't. You just don't. But it's fun to imagine that. It's this fun little power fantasy of being able to, like, slide somebody under the system. And, again, for all the paranoia on this record, it does make sense that, like, Tyler would want to be the guy who feels like he's delivering the proper kind of justice. But even in that sense, the thing that I love most about this one, the vocal layering and all the backing vocals. Like, you've got those vocals that just doing like the ahs in the background. It sounds like a chorus of cartoon frogs. It's great. There's the little oh, like, it's just so fun. You want to sing along with the backing vocals, and even the little bits of like the if they come a knocking, pa pa pa, ain't no stopping me. Like, just, how can you not think that's so fun? It's so great. And I also love all the little melodies in here too. Like, there's that little synth flute that does the da da da, la da da da. Like, that's just such a great melody that worms its way there. There's this little jazzy guitar part that's going on underneath there. The ukulele is driving home. It just feels like such a sing-along. Like, you're sitting around the campfire jamming on this song. Like, that's such a vibe. No, I think this one is so good. It is one that I don't necessarily return to a lot, but whenever it comes up, I'm just like, oh, here we go. It's bounce, man. Like, it just makes me feel so good. The melodies are great. The little vocal inflections in there are great. This is a great song. I cannot understand why so many people think this song is bad or that it's like so childish. It's so fun.
Yeah, I just think anybody that listens to this and is like mad at this song, you're too grumpy. Like have a little fun. I don't think everything needs to be this like depressing thing or even this complex thing lyrically. Like, it's a fun little like made up story that doesn't really like make much sense, but like it's whatever.
And that's the point. That's the point. It's this little power fantasy story. Yeah.
Yeah. I also will say that this going into No Chances, people completely write off this album as if it has absolutely nothing to do with the lore.
Yeah, this No Chances, which we'll might as well kind of transition into here. I feel like this is the one that the fan base was always okay with liking because it very much is about the lore.
Well, I think the thing for me is that I'm going to dig probably too deep, and this probably wasn't intentional, but I've always felt that it is. Like, from the minute I heard this album, that it seemed intentional to me. That Bounce Man ends with saying so long.
Yep.
And to me, it feels like the clear end of Saturation has completely left sonically. Okay. And then No Chances is this sharp turn. It's, oh, this is what you wanted, this and Redecorate. This is the end of the so-called propaganda. Do I think that the concept still is very confusing? Absolutely. Because it's like, are you saying that you're like writing off every song beforehand? Are you saying that you didn't mean those things that you said? Like, it's just not clear enough what that means. I think the propaganda storyline and everything else would have been fine if it was just maybe more cut down or just a part of things visually or something. But yeah, No Chances is obviously such a contrast to Bounce Man, and that seems so intentional to me.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
it's one of my biggest complaints with Clancy was like the track order of these things. And to me, really, I have zero issues with track placements on this album. I think, again, Never Take It into Mulberry Street, into Formidable, Formidable into Bounce Man makes perfect sense. And then Bounce Man being the most obvious juxtaposition from No Chances. I think that works perfectly. We have obviously ripped off this song as well. I will not say.
Yeah.
I will not say what
Multiple
that's called.
times. I love how this song sounds.
Yeah, the
just,
bass with that, this electronic percussion, it hits so hard. Every single time I hear this or I'm listening to this album, I'm cranking this thing because it's not like I'm craving this darker thing. Like that's not something I needed on this album necessarily. But I'm also definitely not against it by any means. I think that Tyler's delivery sounds super confident. It's another one of those things where lyrically is his rapping, is it like super interesting? No, but it's got this.
It's got the delivery. It's got this intensity, and that's what matters.
Yeah, like that really elevates what he's saying, and it really hits for me. And then I think that there's this juxtaposition of the verses, and then you cut to this sort of serene section in the hook. What are the lyrics in that? I'm really trying to place what that is.
In the hook, we got people on the way. We want you home in one piece.
Yeah, so obviously, I think the lore-heavy thing is like very obvious here, in the same way that it is on, Paladin Straight or something. But it's some of my favorite production on this whole album, even though it is so different from the other songs. I love the chanting, the "We Come For You." That sounds like villains are after you, and this is Dima and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, I love this song. I know you do too, so... anything else you have on that?
So many things about this song. The dynamic contrast again from this super minor bassy thing to this laid back chorus with the acoustic guitars and the piano is just an incredible contrast there, and I love how they pull that off. And then when right after the first chorus, when it slams back into that chant part, just so good. And I love also thinking about it in terms of this compared to No Chances. Like I compared the backing vocals on No Chance on Bounce Man, that is, to cartoon frog choir. Like now over here we've got like the hooded robes, and like that's obviously what he's going for, but like the big Catholic kind of menace to it. You flip it so perfectly between those two tracks. My favorite production element here is there's this little almost like clave sounding synth choice that forget what ear it's in. It sounds like, in like an old cartoon when like someone's running really quick. Like it's what it sounds like up at the top corner there. I think the one thing that I always wanted about this one, and they do this live, is that I wanted the ending of this to feel more like Lane Boy, where like Josh can really go off on the drums. I think it kind of works for it not to, because again, this song is less about like a catharsis and more about this menace of like something chasing you. So I get not doing that. That would be the one thing that I think would really put it over the top for me. But the production on this one is so influential to me. We have sampled this song. We have tried our best to replicate it in many ways.
You're taking one, you get the whole damn team, you mess with mine.
We have never quite gotten there because it's just so good that you can't quite get there.
Right.
But no, this one always had a special place in my heart, and I love singing along with that. We come for you. Down there in the bass range.
And then in the live stream too, having like those sirens go off, and it's like there's the huge switch. It's like, all of that feels very intentional. The happy sort of talk show thing. It's very Truman Show-esque, where like the curtain falls, and you really see like the evil behind all of it. Like all of that works so well for me conceptually. And I think it's a shame that people took it as Tyler didn't mean what he was saying in these songs, or these songs are purposefully produced a certain way or whatever else. It's like, I think the whole point of it is just to juxtapose just sonically what it is, not lyrically, because every song up until this point has a very upbeat nature to it. And this is the only song on the album besides Redecorate that feels like, it could belong on Blurry Face or Trench or anything like that. The darker stuff that they're more known for. So I definitely get what you mean when you say, like, it's the only one that fans feel like, this and Redecorate, that they feel like they're allowed to like.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, as we've said, because we love all the other stuff so much. But yeah, I still love this one to this day.
That does take us to the final track on the record, which is Redecorate.
I don't wanna go like this. At least let me clean my...
Where I would like to start with this one, because you started off by saying The Good Day was your favorite 21 Pilots song. So your favorite is the top of the record. My favorite is the bottom of the record. This Redecorate is, I think, my favorite 21 Pilots song. It was pretty much from the minute I first heard it. And I think that for me, the trick to like really loving a record and having it be one of your favorites is to have one song on there that really anchors it for me. And this is it for me. I think this song is just, from a production level, from a lyric level, from a performance level, I struggled to actually kind of verbalize how much this one means to me. Like I said when we were talking about Clancy, that there's always a 21 Pilots song on every record that finds me like right where I am in a certain life situation. This was it for me on this record, Redecorate, and it's a very special song to me, and I truly do think it is my favorite. On your end, I know that this isn't necessarily one of your absolute favorites, but when it comes to it being a closer for this record, how do you feel about it?
No, I mean, it absolutely works for me. I think that even if I don't have that sort of connection to the song lyrically necessarily, I think that I've said this word a lot so far, the juxtaposition to end the album this way, when we started with Good Day, it's just, it makes so much sense to me. I feel like ending it any other way would be odd. And really, the production on this one is what really does it for me. This is, obviously, we've got Paul Meany in the picture.
Yeah.
It sounds very much like... Mute Math's last album, or their final album, I mean. It's very much a continuation, just even in the percussion of sounds that you would have heard on Trench. There's like this echoed snare and this light ride cymbal that's panned to the right, and it's all like super well crafted. Then when you get into that whole section where Tyler is rapping, and it's the whole concept of scaled back and isolated, which has always been a little confusing to me, because like Scaled and Icy means Clancy is dead, but then it's also like
it's
that's
layered.
Awfully convenient.
It's
like,
very layered.
Yeah,
I don't know what came first with that. Was it the anagram, or was it scaled back and isolated? And that one of those just kind of happened to be like, oh, a happy coincidence that we can make it mean both.
I feel
things.
like the anagram had to come first.
I guess so.
Like, to me, that seems like too much of a coincidence.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. I mean, besides that, I was. It's gonna be interesting when you're editing this. This is getting meta, but when you were talking about how much the song means to you, I was pulling out the record and just like bowing down to it.
We'll cut that in later at this point of the video. Yeah.
No, I just think this is a perfect closer. It doesn't really sound anything like any other song on this album. Even like No Chances, I know people pair this song together with that, but I don't think sonically they're all that similar. But I think it really works here. I think it could have existed in a much different fashion. It could have, been something like Truce, where it's just this piano ballad. But I'm so glad that it's this... has this anthemic longing feeling towards the end of it, and this desperation to it. I am glad that the drums don't go like all crazy or anything. It's mostly just that sort of electronic production that takes it forward, which I think makes sense after No Chances. It is interesting that as a drummer, I feel like I shouldn't like this album as much, because there's no spots where Josh for the most part, is really showing off. I mean, there's occasional fills here and there, but I just don't think the record was asking for that in any way.
No. I do think that the texture on this is so cool. Like all the little percussion. There's this sound that almost sounds like you're like tapping on a kitchen pan. It all comes together. So there are these little like sleigh bells even in the background, and they all come together to create this super textured percussion. And to pair that with the little the synth melodies, with the vocal melodies, and then to break into that big chorus where it's all just so layered. My favorite part of this song, and I think my favorite moment on almost any 21 Pilots song at all, is in that final chorus where you've got that, where it all kind of drops out to just like the synth bass and all those stacks of vocals. And then Tyler just says, like, should they keep it on display or redecorate? And then it all comes crashing back in at the end.
Or redecorate. I don't want to go like this.
I swear the world stops when that happens. It is so powerful of a production moment to have that all come in and have his little ad libs going on in the back there. The song just has such a weight to it. And I feel like it is that you've completely stripped back the veneer at this point. You're at the moment where there's nowhere left to hide, and like you're not smiling through the pain anymore. Like this is what was buried underneath all of it. This fear of like never being able to shake that darkness in your head, of losing, of feeling like he may never be able to play a show again, of feeling like they may never be able to live the way that they used to again. And I think that also ties back into a lot of the paranoia on this record, of feeling like, is it all just over? And for that to be the thing at the core of it all that inspired this record. And again, like this record coming out as the pandemic was kind of starting to wane and more things were starting to happen again, of this idea of like, now that it's here and it's time and we've made this record, like, do you keep it on display or do you redecorate? It is very meta in that sense too, of knowing that there's going to be people who don't necessarily like this and who don't like this shift, but this was where they were at and that was the record they made. And I'm always drawn to records like that feel like they were a risk to make, that this wasn't done to please the fan base. This was a record that was like, no, we're gonna make this pivot again. We're gonna go away from the sound we were on the first time. We're gonna go back over here towards something that's more bright, and maybe people aren't gonna like it. And they didn't like it in a lot of senses. But no, I think that I've always been drawn to projects like that feel like they have this sense of risk to them and feel like they have this sense of catharsis to them too. Like when I hear this song, that's what I feel like. I feel like this was something that was really kept buried and was driving Tyler in the creation of the record on Redecorate, and it all came out in such a beautiful way.
Yeah, we touched on a couple weeks ago the Billie Eilish album, feeling like as that track list goes on, it's like slowly sinking to the bottom of the ocean. And I think that this album, on the other hand, is like you're floating above the water basically the whole time, and then no chances, and Redecorate, you just get sucked down into it. And it's like you said, there's no more blind optimism left. The feeling that you had in Good Day, where it's like, well, I guess I'm just gonna keep doing my thing and just bury that stuff deep. It's like at some point you have to acknowledge it. You can't just continue that way. So I love this song. I love this album. And for anybody that feels some type of way about Scaled and Icy, and you love Clancy would definitely not exist without this album. That's very obvious. I do feel kind of odd about that, obviously, as we acknowledged last week, that they felt the need to almost apologize for this. But I mean, if you're one of those people that Clancy is maybe your favorite 21 Pilots album, and maybe Scaled and Icy was something that you weren't feeling, I really do not think Clancy could have just come right after Trench. I think we all needed this just in the time, even. It's something that continues to stick with me. Like when I replay this album, it's this quick 37-minute thing, 11 tracks, super to the point, and I don't think it needed any more or any less.
And it really does take you on like a journey in that time. Like
Yeah.
it feels like it has a beginning and an end in a way that I don't necessarily feel like a lot of their records do. Like for as conceptual as they like to
Right.
be, I often kind of feel like the records meander a little bit. But this one does feel like it has a
Definitely.
beginning and an end to it. And when you hear it in order like that, it really hits. I talked about on the Billie Eilish record of that. I like a cohesive record, but one that I can also go in and pick out favorites from. And this is very much that for me.
This is the pure definition of that.
This is almost
Yeah.
the purest definition of that, of a record that sounds great when you listen to it all together, but is also designed to have tracks that you go back to on their own. Depending on the day you ask me, I would say this is my favorite 21 Pilots album, and it's certainly one of the most influential records that I've heard as a songwriter and producer, maybe ever.
What would be second for you? Like what's competing?
For 21 Pilots' favorite albums, Blurry Face.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I love their pop stuff. It's very influential to me, and I think they're very good at that sound. I think they're just Tyler Joseph being such a good hook writer and such a producer of really anthemic stuff that gets stuck in your head, all the little layers that he can put in there on those two records. I think that's them at their best.
Yeah, this is easily my favorite. I feel that more so now than ever. I don't know if I immediately thought that when I first heard it because I knew I held Trench in such high regard. But like you said, I think even Trench, for as great as that album is, with it being 14 songs, it does sort of lose a bit of steam occasionally. And it's not as like clear and concise as this album is. I've been thinking a lot just over the past week of how I would rank their albums. If you follow us on TikTok, you'll see my ranking. I'll plug that there. But yeah, this is easily my favorite. I think it's a bummer that they're likely not going to make something like this again. But I think with time, I really think that this is going to be a Fall Out Boy, Folie à Deux situation where years, even a decade later, people are going to look back at this more fondly. Because I think even now, people are at least starting to warm up to it. And we are not the sole defenders of this album. I know there are plenty of people that are advocating for it a ton, especially after Tyler has expressed how he feels about the response to it. There's clearly all the defenders are coming out of the woodworks. But yeah, I love this thing. I'm happy to talk about something that I feel so passionately about and was so influential to, like you said, to us. To me, it is just such an inspiring record, even as a drummer, just to understand how important it is to serve a song. This really highlights that. Yeah, I just love it.
It is great to talk about something that we feel passionate about. So there you go, folks. We really are 21 Pilots fans. We were not lying in that first part.
This is proof.
And no, it's great to talk about something like this. That's something that we like so much. We hope you enjoyed listening to us chat about Scaled and Icy. We hope you've been enjoying this little series that we've put together. It's good to get to talk about stuff like this on this level and in this way. I don't know when we're going to make another one of these, but hopefully we'll be able to do that sometime in the near future. But until then, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you soon. Peace.